Hello, everyone. We're so grateful and thankful to God we're able to come this day on the 19th on Juneteenth. And it's stormy around in Central Virginia area. So just in case we blank out, it's because of the storm. Now, I hope it doesn't happen. Pastor Jay.
Good evening, everyone. As Pastor G has stated, we're so happy that you are here with us on this evening. We're going to open up tonight with a scripture. Before we turn this over into the hands of our presenter on tonight, I'm going to read for you Ephesians 6 1 through 4. And it says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord." I've read in your hearing Ephesians, the 6th chapter, the 1st through the 4th verses of the King James Version. And I hope this kind of comes in line with our topic from the presenter on tonight about our children and what the role is of each parents and children. And so this time I'm going to give it to Pastor G, and he is going to turn it over to our presenter after he's had words.
Again, thank you very much. I thank God for our presenter on tonight. And it's kind of unique how we met. I was was last fall, someone had mentioned in this on this platform, do something about adult children estrangement because this person was in this situation. And so I reached out and checked around with several people. Then I called one person who is, I think, a psychologist and in the mental health field. And she said, well, if you can't find anybody else, I'll try to do it, but I'm not greatly versed in this particular subject. Then she contacted me again and said, I have someone. And it was Beatrice. Then when I saw her name, Von Guggenberg, I was like, that's a name I like because it's odd like mine. And she has a unique history about her last name, and she has several middle names. She's got to tell us tonight. But I'm very excited about her coming on. We have talked in full length about all of this, so I'm very excited tonight. And if you have questions, definitely check the questions. We're on Facebook and we're on YouTube. And so you can do that. And please share, join, share. We can see this on the website once it's over with. So we're so delighted. And I present to you Beatrice von Guggenberg. It's in your hand, dear.
Thank you so much. And please don't hesitate to stop and ask me questions and ask for clarification, whatever is needed, because really public speaking is not my thing either. And when the request went out to this group of therapists, is anybody willing to do this? I felt called. And the reason is not because I'm some great expert and I have all the answers. I do not have all the answers, but because I have walked this walk with people and I myself am walking through it. And so, they say the thing you really need to learn is the thing you should teach. And so here I am doing my best. And so, humbly, I come before you to talk about adult child estrangement. About 27% of Americans are estranged from one or both parents in this country. That number has increased tremendously in the past few years. 70% of the estrangements occur after a divorce, and more adult children are using the term no contact, which is kind of a disturbing trend. But I think we're really being called to keep an open mind and an open heart to what the adult children are also going through. So in surveys, 98% of the children said they did it because they felt their parent was emotionally immature. They felt that was the only way they could have the freedom to be themselves. Every child goes through the process of differentiation, and that's basically, who am I as my own person, as an individual, as separate from my family? And I think even though we've become far more nurturing, back in the olden days, it's like if your parents fed you and clothed you and sent you to school, they were good parents, right? Now we live in a society, a culture of therapy, of wanting our parents to be a whole lot more than that to us. And so sometimes our adult children feel like, in a way, like we've gone too far. We've loved them too much, and that's the only way they can be themselves. There are many different situations where adult children are estranged from parents. So I don't want to pigeonhole it into one situation. But particularly in the surveys, the parents were in shock. Many of them didn't see it coming. Even though sometimes, looking back, maybe the child said, if you keep doing that, I don't know if I want to have contact with you anymore. Sometimes that's the case. Other times it just does seem very much out of the blue. In these situations, the adult child has the upper hand. And I bring that up because it is really an important piece later when we talk about how do we do the repair work. It is really important that we as parents be humble, even if it doesn't seem fair and we can't understand it. Humble, but not humiliated, right? That having healthy boundaries is okay. But before we get to that, I thought I would talk a little bit about my situation, because really, if you're a parent going through this, the grief is ongoing, it's unrelenting. It's what we call in the therapy world, it's disenfranchised grief. If, God forbid, if somebody's child dies, the community comes around and they send them meals and they show them love and support. But when a child estranges from a parent, a lot of times it feels like people judge you, right? Even if they're not judging you. I even had a therapist say to me, well, what happened? There must be more to the story. And I felt very judged by that. And that might not have been her intent, but historically, usually that was parents who were abusive. And so I can understand why people wonder, or they're saying, oh, don't worry, your child will come around. And that is also sometimes well-meaning, but not supportive of that parent who is grieving. It is like a death. So if, with your permission, I'm going to read something I actually posted on my personal social media page because I felt like I needed to express what was going on. So I wrote this a few months ago. Seeing so many recent posts for Daughter's Day, it was around Daughter's Day, encouraged me to end my silence about my daughter. So here goes. When my daughter was born, she weighed less than 5 pounds. She was actually smaller than her father's shoe. As a new mom, I had nightmares that she would roll under the refrigerator and I wasn't able to get to her. As she grew, I was filled with awe at the sensitive, smart, and happy person that she became. Yet, as my marriage was dissolving, she felt more and more out of reach. I tried asking for her feedback and feelings in an effort to heal. Then the separation from her father came with some toxic anger from him and no contact from her. She was in college and not returning my calls or texts. Fast forward over 2 years without seeing her. It actually ended up being close to 3 years without seeing her. One quick phone call per year initiated by me, and many unanswered texts. Last week, I had a dream that we were in a train together, and I had to run from car to car looking for her, never to connect with her. I wonder if she will always be that person that I love and I care for, but will forever be out of reach. There seem to be endless opportunities for me to feel into that pain. Mother's Day, graduations, Daughter's Day, etc. I have an adult child whom I love more than life itself, but I haven't posted anything on my Facebook page about her because it wouldn't have been authentic. The authentic picture has been one of pain and loss, the disenfranchised grief of a relationship called child estrangement. And it's a pain felt by more and more parents these days. People have said for the past few years, oh, she'll come around. Of course, part of me still hopes for that. I continue to send her loving, supportive texts, hoping for a little response. But more and more, I wonder if it will ever happen. Recently, a friend bravely posted about his experience when he and his wife were called to make end-of-life decisions for their estranged adult child. I can only imagine how painful that must have been for them. During the divorce, her father said, "You are no longer her mother," in an effort to hurt me. I questioned every conversation, every decision I had made. Was I too involved? Was I not involved enough? I'd built my life around her, her activities, her needs, her growth. I'd backed off at her request while remaining present during her teen years. But maybe I should have worked harder to bring her closer. I regret that she had to bear witness to her parents' marital distress and hurt. My heart goes out to her. I've spent countless hours questioning my parenting. Yet I know that staying in that place of blaming myself only was feeding my shame and my depression. It actually got so bad at one point in the past that I wasn't sure I deserved to live. As a therapist, I have an understanding that when guilt turns into disproportionate guilt or shame, I also know the power of self-compassion. And with the help of so many beautifully supportive people in my life, I've been able to I've been able to pull out myself out of that dark place. I was far from a perfect mom, but I also know that I did and said everything out of love. I did my best with the circumstances I was given. My daughter has had to cope with intergenerational trauma on both sides of her family. It may feel easier for her to view one side as good while the other side is bad. Well, yet humans are both. I too struggled with my mom. I never completely cut her out of my life. I'm grateful for that. Today, I know my mother as a fully human, flawed, and loving person. I recognize that hating her meant hating a part of myself. I've had to set some boundaries with my mom. Our values are different. But I have not erected walls. I know that she loves me, and it's been a lot of work and worthwhile work for me. I hope and pray that one day my daughter will be able to do the work. I hope if she decides to do it, that it isn't too late for us to have a relationship. They say when we have children, it's a process of letting them go from the moment they are born. Yet I never expected to lose all connection while we were both living. As I navigate through the pain of this grief, I'm starting to also experience beautiful moments where all I feel is love for my faraway and elusive daughter. The ability to feel so much love for her and to love myself at the same time feels like real healing is happening in me. Let it begin with me. So that is a very kind of summarized narrative of the process I had to go through to get to that place. My journey is far from over. I am still in it. It is still painful. I do want to say that what feels like a miracle, my daughter and her boyfriend did attend my wedding last month, which, was the first time I saw her in about 3 years. So that was a beautiful thing. That said, I know that there is a big conversation that is going to have to happen for us to have any real healing. Um, she had a reason for doing what she did, and I respect that. And so I don't know really why. She just kind of went silent. Sometimes adult children will tell their parents, but sometimes they don't. Um, and so I know that we'll have to have that conversation, and I'll be glad to talk about what that will have to look like for me. But the first part for any parent that's going through this is dealing with their own pain, right? Dealing with how you deal with that pain makes the difference between being completely stuck and healing. And I will tell you, I mean, I have a friend my age. She hasn't completely, disconnected from her mom, but almost like she stopped doing all the work because her mom has been so caught up in her own stuff that it's become like emotionally abusive, right? We don't want to be that parent. We want to be that parent that can hold space for our child, even if we disagree with the reasons they created the space, that they estranged themselves. So how do you get to that point? In the beginning, I was not there. I was filled with shame, fear, you name it, all of the negative emotions. I had to go through the feelings. I had to work through the shame. I had to also recognize she may never come around, and I need the healing for me, not to try to manipulate her to come back somehow. I have a close friend in her 80s whose son did this many years ago, and she tried and tried to repair. They went to therapy sessions, etc., and he has never come around. It's been about 40 years. And he may never, right? Because he's also, whenever his siblings talk to him, he's always angry and bitter. And, the child has to also be willing to do some of the work, right? So pain versus suffering, I think that's an important thing. Of course, it's painful. There's grief. But suffering is the thing we do to ourselves that goes beyond the pain, right? When I tell myself, I must have been such a terrible mother. I don't deserve to live. I'm just awful, right? Or, right, shame and blame are two sides of the same coin. So sometimes we're like, well, what an ungrateful little piece of whatever, right? And that's also creating more suffering, because when we're stuck in anger, we're not healing. So going through the pain and really addressing the parts that create extra unnecessary suffering for us. Self-compassion is the key, right? It gets us out of guilty rumination, envy, social isolation, self-pity, all of those things. Self-compassion takes so many different forms, but it's really that coming to that understanding. Like my 80-some-year-old friend, she has a happy, fulfilling life with really meaningful relationships in her life, right? Coming to that understanding that this does not have to destroy me. That yes, I made big mistakes, but I also did some things right, and that everything I did was out of love. That those are the ways that we can talk to ourselves. Even ask yourself, if you're a parent going through this, if my best friend came to me and said those words, what would I say to her, or him? Would I remind them, like, remember you did go to their games, and you were there for dinner every chance you had, and yeah, maybe you worked a lot, but you were really trying to help the family, like, right? To try to remind them, not to argue with yourself, but to remind yourself that those bad feelings aren't 100% of the story. And I also like if you are feeling a lot of anger towards your estranged child, I like the phrase, hurt people, right? They are hurting, and that's why they're doing that. So it's staying in the present moment, right? Through prayer and meditation. When we feel anxious, we're worried about the future, right? I would think, what if I die and, we've never made amends? That would be awful. Or the past is depression, right? Depression is stuck in all the things I did wrong, or all the ways that I wish I'd done things differently. And of course you go there, but it's a matter of, let's not stay there, and stay in the present. And in the present, you can say, this is self-compassion. Maybe put a hand on your own shoulder, because that releases oxytocin, the love chemical. It's like you're being a kind parent to yourself, and you tell yourself, this is a moment of grief. This is a moment of suffering. I'm here for you. Right? And that's kindness towards yourself. Let yourself cry. Let yourself feel the anger. It's normal, because by going through it, you will also get to the other side. So the goal, as I alluded to in my reading, is having boundaries and not walls. Boundaries, it's like a picket fence, right? We put a picket fence in our yard that lets the light and the air come through, but it protects us from, maybe there's a dog on the other side or whatever. A wall, we can't even feel the light or the air come through, right? So as the parent, I guess I'll start with the child. As the child, if you are a child who's estranged from their parent, first off, I know you had a good reason to do what you did, right? See if there's a way to set boundaries. That's what I was able to do with my mother. I said, we disagree on these fundamental things. And if you want a relationship with me, you need to respect that this is where I am with this. And we kind of agreed to not talk about certain things like politics, and it worked out, right? But some young adults today have actually chosen complete estrangement due to politics. So invite the adult child to consider, what are my boundaries? And then for the parent, again, going back to that, they have the upper hand. So it's not going to be probably the best time to dive right into boundaries when you're trying to reestablish a relationship. But certainly you don't ever have to put up with abuse, right? If every time you speak to your child, they're screaming and yelling and angry, you can say, again, speak your truth in love, right? Saying to them, I really want to repair this relationship. I love you. I care about you. And I'm going to leave the conversation now. Let's talk when we can both be calm and respectful of one another, right? That's a way of setting boundaries without saying, I can't believe you, ungrateful kid, or whatever. It's tempting to say those things. It really is. If your child is estranged and you have any kind of contact, this book has helped me a lot, Rules of Estrangement. The author is a psychologist who went through his own adult child estrangement. He's an expert in the field. He's done research, way more of an expert than me. He's done research. This is what he does for a living. He treats families that are going through this. And it's called Rules of Estrangement: Why Adult Children Cut Ties and How to Heal the Conflict, by Joshua Coleman. So in the book, he gives a lot of different scenarios of what might be the cause of the estrangement, and really very, very good advice on how to go about it. He even provides sample letters. So I have written an amends letter to my daughter. Looking back on it, I didn't, blame or shame, but yeah, I probably did a little too much explaining. And in the beginning, you don't do any explaining, and you might never do any explaining. Like, oh, well, the reason I did this was because I was going through a tough time with that. No, they don't need to hear that, right? You can talk about that with your therapist, with your friends, absolutely, you need a place to express why you did what you did. But what they need is for you to hold space, right? For you to say, and so I'm drafting my next amends letter, for you to say, I know you wouldn't have done what you did unless you had a good reason for it. I would like to talk with you about this. I'm willing to hear your point of view. And even if you're thinking, well, it really wasn't that bad for them, what are they talking about? You don't understand it, but do we ever really understand what it's like for another person to go through what they went through? No. We just don't. And so to say, gosh, I didn't know that me doing that or me saying that hurt you so much, but I get it. And I'm so sorry that you've carried this pain all this time, right? Things that are loving and supportive. I think about the story of the prodigal son in the Bible. He came back and, the other son was kind of mad, right? Like, wait a minute. He left. He wasn't here to help out. He took everything. And now you welcome him with open arms. But that is what we're called to do, right? To love unconditionally. Again, that doesn't mean we have to ever put up with abuse, because we also love ourselves. So working really hard to understand what motivated their estrangement, remembering my self-dialogue is like, yep, I did the best I could. I was imperfect and I forgive myself for it. That's not going to be what I say to her, because that's going to feel like I'm not validating what she went through. Now, at some point, she might ask me, what was it like for you, Mom? That's probably going to be way down the road if it ever happens, right? And if she does, I can share a little bit of that, but we don't burden our children with that, especially when they've taken that extreme step of estranging themselves. Replace bitterness and hurt with a wise affection. And by a wise affection is kind of all the things that I've talked about. Working really hard on how do I self-regulate, right? And that's something a therapist can help guide you through. Taking those deep breaths, grounding yourself so you don't end up falling into, a screaming match or feelings of shame of, oh, I was such a terrible parent. Because guess what? That's not at all helpful. They're going to be like, see, you make it all about you, and they're going to push you away again, right? So really working on self-regulating, that is what wise affection really is, right? Being really grounded and loving within ourselves so we can hold space for our child. It is an opportunity to learn a whole lot about ourselves, right? Even though it's painful and it's terrible. And sometimes it's an opportunity, like my friend Gloria, to recognize, wow, the worst thing I could ever imagine happened, and I'm okay. I got through it. Sometimes that's also that opportunity. As they say, another such and such growth opportunity. They're not fun, but we grow through them. You will be more at peace regardless of the outcome if you do this work. The research shows, that just saying, well, one day they'll come around really doesn't work. Because the longer the estrangement goes on, the more fixed it becomes. So for the parent to be that person to extend the olive branch is really important. Don't argue with your child, even if what they say or what they accuse you of seems really far-fetched. It's okay to say, gosh, I don't remember it that way, but I can see that you're really hurt by this. Let's explore it further. I'd like to know more about what it was like for you, right? You don't have to lie to them. You shouldn't lie to them, but also don't fall into the trap of defending yourself, because that which we resist persists, right? They're going to continue to, if we resist, they're going to say, see, I'm right. I need to be estranged from you. But if we're able to say, wow, I'm here for you. I'm willing to hold space. I care about what it was like for you. It may open the door, right? Not necessarily, but it may open the door. So the key is compassion. which is really what I'm not a minister, but that is what God and Christ call us to, is compassion for ourselves and others. Um, so I think that's all I have. Boy, that I feel like I went on and on and on. I'm not used to talking this much.
You're doing good. You're doing.
Thank you. Um, and really, I guess I can't stress enough, take care of yourself in the grief, talk to people who care about you, who respect you, who see your goodness. Um, so any questions from either of you two or the audience? I don't see any from the audience.
Okay. There is a there's a question someone had asked me. Actually, that's why I had to step away earlier because
Mm,
the person had actually texted me. But anyway, and you really kind of answered the question, but I still want to highlight it as if let's say your child, your adult child, the estranged child, stay away from you, contact 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 years or whatever, and they come right back around and talk to you like nothing ever happened
mhm.
or why they have been estranged. So what does that person, that parent, do? Should
Yeah,
that parent try to bring it back up, or maybe that child, it may not be the easiest person to talk to. Maybe the child can blow up.
right.
So, kind of an idea of what would that parent do when that child, adult child, come back in? Like, they just saw you yesterday, but it's been 20,
Right.
18, 24 months.
Yeah, good question. Um, I do believe that it is important to have that conversation. Now, if it's a child that maybe has some anger issues, or you're worried about how will I get caught up in defending or whatever, doing a letter, it can be really helpful. And the idea is, hey, I'm not sure what happened and I really want to know, because I never want, I hope that we never go through a period like that again. Right. And I imagine that you were going through something that made you do what you did. And I want to know about it. Right. The invitation. And maybe you put it in writing and you invite them to talk about it with your pastor present or their therapist present or whomever they would feel comfortable with, so that you can both kind of know that you can stick by the ground rules of love and respect when you have the conversation. um, but I do agree that, then it ends up being the elephant in the room and you're walking on eggshells, and that is not growth or love or intimacy.
Yeah.
That's just like being around a stranger. you know. And they might say, I'm not ready to talk about it yet, right? And that's
Yeah.
okay. Just let them know I'm here when you are ready.
Yeah. And yes, definitely I can understand that. But I'm hearing the heart of that person. And again, I make sure I'm clear, make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, because this person has said the child comes around every couple of years, 18 months or whatever, as if nothing has happened. Nothing. It's like hunky dory.
Yeah.
But the parent wants to know, should that parent bring that question up?
Yeah.
And or when the parent said the child is somewhat volatile, and then I said to this particular person, maybe you shouldn't say anything then, if that's the case, and enjoy that moment you have with your child, because you don't know when
Yeah.
you'll be
It,
back in
it,
contact.
good point. Both can be true,
Yeah,
right? You enjoy the moment, right? Because you don't want to come right in to talk about problems when they finally have reestablished contact. You want them to have that positive experience of, wow, hanging out with my mom can be a pleasant thing. We
Yeah.
don't always have to talk about the
The
hard thing,
issue. Yeah.
right? So yeah, you want that. And then you also want that invitation, that loving invitation. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here.
Yeah. And unfortunately, this person has two adult children who are estranged.
Yeah. Mm,
And it was years ago about a divorce, like you had said.
yeah. Yeah.
And the first child hadn't talked to this young person, in about 5 years, 4 to 5 years.
Mm,
So the heart is broken,
yeah.
understandably. But I do like what your friend, the 80-plus-year-old lady, she had come to the conclusion, and I like what you said, it may never happen because
Yeah.
are, all of us being human, we expect and question about reconciliation. All of us, generally speaking, would like reconciliation, but sometimes it, not just in this an estrangement, but sometimes it, excuse my English, it ain't gonna happen.
Right.
Like
Right.
with that lady, it just ain't gonna happen,
Yeah.
and you must live on.
Yes. And she has used the phrase with me, I've learned to love him from a distance. And isn't that is true unconditional love, right? She will always love him with all her heart, but some people, sometimes it's healthiest to love some people from a distance, especially if there's um, like substance abuse or severe mental illness, or a child that only comes to you when they want money and they have a pattern of narcissism. And I'm not saying put up a wall with your child, but just create that space of healthy boundaries, and I'm here for you, right? So even now in her 80s, if her son came around and said, Mom, I was wrong, I'd like to talk about it, she would talk about it, right? She hasn't shut him out, but she's going on with her life and she's loving him from a distance. Yeah. It's hard to do that with a child because we want to just hold them so close.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Um, Pastor Jay, have anything to say? Because I have another statement. I, my wife and I have experienced that a little bit, short period of time. Um,
Mhm.
One of our children, a few years back, situation that had gone on, and kind of cut us off, and
Mhm.
it hurt, and of course, it hurt you mothers more. Not that I'm insensitive as a man. I mean, you all birthed this child, yes, both of us together, but the mother has a connection, and I can understand a little bit through my wife. A mother has a connection that a father can't touch
Mhm.
because the mother's one to carry and birth. And so it hurt her, but we both together say, we're going to live on.
Yeah.
We left it in the hands of the Lord because, see, and I don't want to use that as an excuse. And parents, please, and especially those who are in Christ, don't use this as an excuse. I left it in the hands of the Lord.
Right.
There are some practical things that we have to do too.
Yes.
And sometimes you got to leave it, just pray and leave it alone. But it hurt us, but we have other children and grands, and we love from a distance. And it was less than 2 years, probably a good year and a piece as they would stay back home in the country. And it seemed like all of a sudden, slowly but surely, the particular child started calling, and
Mhm.
now it's like 2 and 3 times a week.
Mm.
And we are enjoying it. And also, it taught us a lesson too. You don't crowd your children.
Yes. Right. Because maybe for them, whatever they had to face into, some children, some adult children say, the only way I can quiet that constant voice of my parents in my head and find my own voice is to have no contact for a while, right? So maybe, and I don't want it's not my business what was going on with your child, but maybe that was part of it. They had to go through that, their journey, right? To find themselves so they could be in relationship. A healthy relationship has is in one in which a person feels free to be themselves and at the same time feels held and loved, right? And in a way, we're called to be what God is to us. God holds us and loves us and gives us the freedom.
In spite of
And
this.
and sometimes as parents with very good intentions, we end up doing too much and our child feels crowded, right? Um, yeah.
Why are you talking about me? Okay. No, because I mean that is so true. Because in that experience, I have kind of maybe a little bit strong personality, just a little bit,
Mhm.
and with that adult child, and with all of them, I found. I Pastor Jay, I saw that wide hand. I'm gonna get you once we get off. Even though they're in their 40s, I'm still your daddy, and I got something to tell you.
Mhm.
And then I start in praying, seeking the Lord. And that's a practical thing. Here's the practicality of it. Guli, let it go.
Mm.
They are grown.
Yeah.
And if they need you, they know, and both of us, but from the man perspective, if they need you, they know how to call you. They know how to get in contact.
Yeah.
Stop always trying to give them directives or direction. That
Yeah.
was my, whew, that was
It
my
is
challenge
so
because I'm
hard.
the daddy.
Right. It is so hard because you've been through it and you think I can protect them from the pain of having to go through this. I'll just tell them how to do it. They have to go through the pain. They have to make their mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that taught me a whole lot. And even now, as the estranged child has come back, and of course, plus the others, um, I've learned how to relax now.
Mm.
Gooly, they have to make their own trail. They have
Yeah.
to go out in the wide yonder and trailblaze, just like you had to do from your parents. Just like
Right.
God doesn't force me; He gives me
And
an open
really, when
opportunity.
you relax, that's when you're living your faith, right? Because you know that God's got them. You don't
Yeah,
have to hang on so tight, you know?
yeah, easy said,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
harder done. But this has really, really been great because not only the information you gave, and you gave us the book by Joshua Coleman about the rules of estrangement, but
Mhm.
you talk from personal, and I know we talked before, but to hear you say it again, it's like, oh my goodness, you have lived and living the truth, and so it's not an easy. Mine was very temporary. I was very temporary compared to that elderly lady, 40 plus years. Yours, however many years, and this other friend of mine's been, a few years. I know how that hurt us, hurt me, but to go those many years,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that can be a challenge. But you guess what? Guess what? We had to break away from our parents.
Mhm.
Some things they didn't like, of course. Well, we as parents, we become our parents, and our children are going to break away.
Yeah.
So I know with my children, with our children, there are mistakes in bringing them up. I apologize then. Apologies don't
Mm.
take away all the pain, but I
Right.
let them, but again, being that man, their father, I let them know I'm vulnerable. I was trying to find myself and my daughter and I was talking about this the other day. He said, Dad, I never held this against you because the strong personality coming from the country, how I was raised. My wife, thank God for that beautiful lady. Cooley, you're going to run them away. You're too hard on them.
Mm.
Whew. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Right,
so
'cause we weren't parented perfectly either, right? And I'm so glad you brought that up. There's a concept of the good enough parent in attachment theory and all the research that there is no such thing as a perfect parent, right? We all make mistakes, many of them. The good enough parent owns their mistakes and has the opportunity to make amends. And amends isn't just saying, I'm sorry. And by the way, it's not saying, I'm sorry you feel that way. It's saying, I'm sorry that I hurt you, right? That's really important. But it's not just that, it's also the willingness to make a change, right? Like, and even if it's something you don't totally agree with, like, you know, I know at one point my daughter said she didn't like it when I posted her picture on Facebook. And I said, I'm just really proud of you, because it was her, at the cross country meet or something. And and looking back on it, the right answer would have been, okay, I don't understand it, but I will honor that. Right. And I did back off, but I had to sort of defend myself back then. I'm learning. Yeah. Yeah. So the good enough parent makes the repair. And that's where real connection and intimacy and growth happens, right? Because if you were always a perfect parent, there would be no intimacy, right? Like it would just be like robots.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would say in all of this, we got to accept what is,
mhm.
because not in just in this estrangement thing. It's just the fact, like you said, we all make mistakes. We're all trying to pave our way, and many mistakes that I've had, I've stopped killing myself. In other words, for me, I could forgive you like
Mhm.
that a lot of times, but forgiving me, that person was the problem.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to forgive him. And when I could accept that, it actually freed me up. Then I could be able to navigate. Here's a question. How
Yeah.
about the info young adults read on social media that violates estrangement rather than working through a situation? How
Yeah.
about the info young adults read on social media that
Mhm.
validates estrangement rather than working through a situation?
Yeah. Uh, there's a lot of therapists who are doing damage. And some of them are on social media, and some are not therapists, just saying, well, if I wouldn't choose that person as my friend, why would I want to have any contact with them as my parent? Right. Like those kinds of things. And it's such a disservice to these young people because um, it's doing that work of, can we renegotiate our relationship to have better boundaries that allows both parties to really grow? In other words, like, I mean, I had a friend who many years ago died of AIDS, but he went to his parents who were, very like rigidly Christian, and said, I'm gay. And their initial response was, we can't accept you that way. And he had to create space. It was very hard. But guess what? The parents then came around because he kept the door open. They said, you know what? Our love for you is more important, and it's more Christ-like, of course, to show that love for their child. And anyway, so yeah, I think this no contact trend is is really dangerous. Um, is it appropriate sometimes if the parents say, "I can't accept you as you are, you have to be that vision of who I think you should be," and it's not who that person is it okay to create more space and love them from a distance? Absolutely. But leave the door open so that if they do come around, you can have that relationship.
I
Um,
like what you said, and I hope that answered the question. If not,
yeah, it's a dangerous trend, is I
yeah,
guess all I can say about that, because it's taken something that sometimes is valid. Of course, if there's abuse, that you don't have to be around a person who's going to abuse you, but that's a very small percentage.
yeah,
And um, anyway, it's taken something that's a very small percentage and turned it into the answer for everyone who has any kind of conflict with their parent. And it's by working through conflict that we grow. It's not by avoiding it.
yeah.
you know.
Wow. But I do like the point that you said about creating a space, and that's on both polars. I mean, you got to. The
Yeah.
parent to the adult child to the parent depends on the situation, and we have to create that space. And we can love at a distance because it may be detrimental to your health spiritually, physically, emotionally, financially, all the way around. And also from the country, you can take that mule and that horse to the watering trough. I'd be doggone it. And who said, Andy Griffith, somebody said, and dag nabbit, you're not going to make them drink. So
That's
we can take our children, our strange children, to the watering trough. I don't care if you stick their head in the trough, they're not going to drink it.
Yeah.
So, other part is we got to accept what it is. We have to make sure our hearts are clear and
Yes.
that we have repented of our shortcomings, and of course to that person if we're able to verbalize it or not. uh, and we have to accept that the space, accept that I messed up and I've done that to my children. I don't want to use it as just hey, I made a mistake. No, I'm sorry, I repent of it even then. uh, I want to do better. And another thing we're going to have to do in order to help repair this, when they come to you and they finally come to you, or even if they're still around you, this is for me. I and still learn, but had to learn this. Accept what they say, even though it's cutting you and you're bleeding
Mm,
red,
mm,
green, black, and blue. Ex- Listen to what they're saying, and many times you don't need to give them an explanation then, or it's not warranted. Accept
right.
it, and you may get another opportunity. If you do, good. If you don't, you don't. But I'm learning, accept it, and I'm crying on the inside, like whoa, this hurts, but it's the truth, and
Right.
our truth, the truth will set us free. So
And it is their truth. It may not be
yes,
the whole truth, right? Like,
that's right.
um, one example of something my daughter told me is that when she was, I don't know, 10 or 11, she sat on my lap like she used to, and she was this like strong little gymnast. And I said, ouch. And because she was so muscular that it actually hurt. And she said, that hurt my feelings, and I never wanted to sit on your lap ever again. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's not how I intended it. Right. But that was her truth. That's how it felt for her. And so that's valid. Um,
Everyone's truth, everyone's perception is their truth. and there's nothing we can do to
It's
change
their
that. Go on, Pastor Jay. What are you saying?
No, I was just going to say it's their reality,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what they really feel, their perception, and you can't change that. And there's no way to know. We shouldn't go in to try to change that.
Right.
That's the way they feel. That's what they really feel. That's their reality. To Lou Allen's question as well, I wanted to just comment on that. That unfortunately, social media speaks to a lot of hurting people, um, people who are in places. How look at our world today as far as news. Bad news travels quicker, so and faster, and why do they do that? Because this is what people want to hear.
Yeah.
So a person that is hurting from an estrangement, or hurt by the parent, or whatever the situation is, of course they're going to be people out there that's going to feed what they are feeling. And that's what they're going to gravitate to.
Mm.
There and there's nothing we can actually do to prevent them from going in that direction, unless that person comes into a space with us and say, let's sit down and talk through this, or go through counseling with us. But that is a time of getting them to that place, which is a point of another agreement. And so, but we're just going to have to deal with that reality, that social media is going to feed the people what they want to hear. There's so much negativity on social media, and anyway, in my opinion,
There also
that people
are,
feed.
I mean, I pulled up some really good things on YouTube, and so there
Mm-hmm.
are good there's some good
Yeah,
information out there. I think
there
we have to
is.
be
There
really
is.
selective.
Mm-hmm. There's good, but I think if we weigh it, even in our Christendom, when we weigh it, we've got, I'm just saying, we got preachers teaching and preaching what people want to hear,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah.
And so when you weigh it, the bad news kind of floats to the top, the bad stuff,
Mhm.
and that's unfortunate. But
Right.
we do what we can do to try to get the good information out there, and to try to help people. This is why
Thank
this
you.
platform is, so that we can, maybe there's somebody who is listening that says, this is foolishness. I need to reconcile with my parent. Why have I been away so long?
Mhm.
Why did I even disconnect in the first place? And so sometimes, we need to sit back and just start asking ourselves some of these questions. But I like the point that you made, Beatrice, when you said about, what they feel is real. And we can't change that. But I also like the part that you said, from the perspective of the person who's wanting to do the right thing, the self compassion, taking care of yourself, because our mindset and the whole thing is, we've got to keep our heart right. We've got to keep our minds in a good space. We've got to self care, to make sure, to me, one, getting the word of God in me, to see what God's word says that will help me in this situation, so that whenever and if this person, this child or a person comes back, that I'm in a space and a mindset that I am there for them and ready to receive them, because that's very important. I tell myself every day, Lord, help me keep my heart right, because in keeping my heart right, it gives a space to open and not set in judgment on that individual, that person, that child.
Right.
It hurts, definitely. It hurts. And sometimes I would tell myself, why did he say that to me? Because just like you were talking about sitting on the lap,
Okay.
I was like, I don't know who this person is talking about that did that, but that was their
Yeah.
reality. And I had to go with that. What I did do was, I kept the space open, because I took the mindset, because at this point, in some instances, these children, or that child, becomes your enemy. And so you have to keep the mindset to keep your friends close and your enemies closer, meaning you're going to keep a space there so that you can be ready to receive them, to hear them, even if it's just a hi for the day.
Mm.
Receive it, and take baby steps to grow if you can in a
And
situation,
be willing to
because these
give
are
too, right? Because they
Mhm.
might not come around, but it's really important that
Right.
we extend the invitation. We let them know. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I
And keep a positive mindset about it. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things, you know, um, because
Yeah.
the fear of what if it never gets better is a real God, that's just devastating loss. Um, but that I can be okay no matter what. I will get through, you
Yes.
know. Um,
Yes.
Ooh, that's a lot tonight.
yeah.
And I can probably, and you just said it, but I can probably summarize in that I'll be okay.
Yeah, and you know
None.
what? More than okay, and that is the miracle. That's the peace that passeth all understanding, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we all must realize, and I say this in our closing, is that what helps me to forgive, accept people's apology is that, Guli, you have hurt people. Now, you try not to intentionally hurt someone, but if you, I'm gonna put it in a bad way, if you intentionally or unintentionally kill somebody, if the person could speak real quickly, but I'm still dead. So where we intentionally or unintentionally hurt someone, everyone hurts someone, and we want people to forgive us. We need to, as the Bible says, but we need to quickly forgive others. It's
Mhm.
easy for us to hold something against another person, and especially in this estrangement situation, but we in turn want somebody to forgive us, but we don't want to forgive. So
Yeah.
thank you
And
very much tonight.
the
This
hardest thing is to forgive ourselves,
thank you,
especially parents,
and we got to remember we are somebody,
Yes.
because the Bible tells us that we don't forgive others. God won't forgive others of their trespasses. He won't forgive us. Guess who's the others? Me. You're
Yeah.
right. I got to forgive me and you and everyone else in order to go on. Beatrice, this is. Oh, before I close, do you want to give me your two middle names? I don't have to.
So it's Beatrice Antonia Teresa von Guggenberg. That's a more than
Beatrice Antonio.
Antonia
Oh, Antonia
Teresa von
Teresa.
Guggenberg.
Antonia Teresa Van Gutenberg. I just love it.
That's a mouthful.
But see, you're different from me. If I had all those names, I would say every last one of them with emphasis. Ask my wife.
I
Please,
He
really
would.
want to thank you too. I
thank
mean,
you.
gosh, the work you're doing is so important,
Thank
and you
God.
are destigmatizing mental health issues.
Yes.
And I know that is going to help bring people to healing and save
Yeah.
them spiritually, emotionally, physically,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
Thank you. And like we
Thank
said
you.
before, and all of you out in the audience, those who are viewing now and will view, if you know of someone or yourself who would like to do a presentation on our leadership the first Thursday of the month, or the mental health the third Thursday of the month, please, if you don't want to do it, you may know someone else, or it does not have to be a professional person. We have, as Beatrice is, a very professional person as well. We have people come from the church arena, from the education, the medical, just all the way around. You do not have to be a specialist. You don't have to be a minister. You got to tell your truth. And a lot of times we may not be the direct person dealing with the mental health issues in this case, but it may be somebody you know, or the environment that you grew in, maybe a sibling, a parent, or somebody else, a co-worker. So Beatrice, please continue to share. Like us on our everyone, like us on our Facebook page for Rock Faith International Ministries, and that's our church, and Simple Balanced Life Ministries, which is our personal ministry. Go on YouTube and like and press the notification button that'll be all relative to the individual. Then on Facebook, follow, like, do all of those things so we can continue to promote the ministries that God has blessed us to do. Again, Beatrice, thank you so much. You know, we're going to talk. We're going to talk. And I just thank God for you. You gave a lot of information. Like I said, I like it from the professional level to your personal. When you added that personal, yeah, that was the cherry on the cake. So thank you all very much tonight. We look forward to seeing you all again. Don't forget, join us tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. It's Monday through Friday. Breakfast with Us. Your early morning boost is on Facebook and YouTube from Rock Faith and Simple Balance Life Ministries. You all have a good night, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Thanks for joining, Luella. Yes, thank you, Beatrice.
Thank you.